I'd like to call the meeting of the Education Government Committee to order. Any items for discussion from any committee members or legislators? The only thing I'd like to bring up, we had another very successful meeting with NISAC this past Friday. Public notice was sent out, and we had a nice turnout and talked about veto powers, super session, and public hearing process. So we got some good information on that to go into drafting any charter amendments. The process is ongoing, and we're on par for our goal of next spring of coming out with a whole list of charter amendments to go to the public next November. Hearing no other discussion, the first and only resolution we have is a resolution adopting introductory local law E of 2014, a local law adopting Montgomery County Code of Ethics, Office of the Legislature. I look for a sponsor. Martin Kelly, in a second. I will second the resolution. I brought this to you last month. This was part of the hard work of Martin and our legislative research specialist to go through, take a look at our ethics law to update it to the two-branch form of government and add some other provisions in there. There was a memo sent out by the county executive yesterday that addressed some concerns. Today, Martin and I and the county executive had a chance to sit down and go through a lot of those concerns, and we believe, and I'll allow Martin and the county executive to speak to that. I'm going to pass these around. These are changes that were made this afternoon that addressed the county executive's concerns. They are in the resolution, but this handout highlights the specific changes. Did I give you an extra? Okay. Basically, what we just cleaned up some language here that states that in Article 3 of the document that there is no ban or barring on any contractor having donated more than $1,000 to any officer of the county. There is just a requirement that needs to be disclosed. That was the original intent, and we just wanted to clear up some language. So that came across, and there was no room for interpretation there. We've got a sponsor in a second. Any discussion?
Of the whole thing?
Of the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay. The floor is yours.
Thank you. How the ethics board is appointed has been my concern the whole time. Not necessarily a present company, but in the future. I think that unless I'm reading it wrong and I scroll down to that section, the county executive solely appoints the ethics board. It's not, is that correct?
That's correct, and I would just add that like pretty much every other appointment, there's a check and a balance. Any appointment that the county executive makes, with very few exceptions, needs to be confirmed by the legislature. These appointments need to be confirmed by the legislature, and if the county executive, whoever it would be, fails to take any action, the county legislature would have the power to step in and make that appointment, which is a unique provision to this law. So there is that check and balance. Same way as if we have an appointment power, there is a veto power on that in most all cases. So there's that check and balance that it's not a absolute power in any case.
All right, so you just said if for some reason the county executive appointed, it wasn't confirmed by the legislature could then appoint? Unless I missed that, and I apologize. Where? Because then I would think it would go back to the executive to then put another name
I believe
forward.
it's in section 202. Martin, do you know by any chance the subsection on that?
That's 207.
Okay, no, I apologize. Section 202, subsection B, if the county executive fails to fill a vacancy on the board within 60 days after a vacancy occurs, the county legislature shall proceed to fill such vacancy.
Right, okay.
So if there was an appointment that was made by the executive and the legislature failed to confirm, that time limit would still be in place. That 60-day time limit would still be in place. So another one could be proposed in that time period. However, if it did not, the legislature would be able to, after 60 days, after the vacancy, be able to make an appointment.
Okay.
These appointments are just like every other appointment the executive has brought forward.
I understand.
Requires confirmation. There's a window. If he doesn't act on it, then we get to appoint him. I think it's the right way to go. It's the checks and balance that.
So, yeah, but in any other case, if the executive doesn't appoint, well, I mean, we reject, and then it goes back to him to appoint, we just can't put anybody in there we want.
Right.
But in this case, we can. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So if, you know,
If he fails to act within 60 days.
fails to act,
Fails to bring forth another
or if he
person.
brings a name up,
Yeah.
we just can't reject it, keep rejecting it, put in whoever the
And
heck
that's
we
the
want.
way it is with most appointments, is there's a 60-day window, and if we reject an appointment,
Right, if we reject, he acted, we just rejected it. What I'm saying is, if we can't come to an agreement on who, whatever the appointment is, after 60 days, we just don't put in whoever we want, because that would be
Exactly.
taking his, right? Am I right or wrong?
Yes.
I'm asking the question.
Yes.
just because we reject does not mean we have the authority to bring someone in.
But I thought he just said that we couldn't put somebody in.
If
Only
the
because of
executive fails to fill a vacancy, yes.
that doesn't mean we don't agree with it, that just means he fails to put a name on
I would even argue, just from my reading on this, it would always fail to appoint, meaning fail to get through the whole process. So if I would assume that this would mean I have 60 days to have 5 successful appointments that are confirmed by the legislature. And after that 60 days, if I didn't put up satisfactory appointees to you, then you would have the ability to appoint at that point. Is that?
That's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
I think that's two different interpretations.
Yeah, that's taking your ability to appoint away.
I could be wrong.
Doug,
You might consider expanding the language in that provision slightly to something to the effect, and I'm thinking out loud here, but to the extent that if the county executive fails to make an appointment within 60 days, rather than fill, because fill could be interpreted in a couple of different ways. If he appoints and it's rejected, it's not really fill, but I think this language contemplates that happening. In other words, he'd be have a time frame in which to make an appointment. The county executive can't fill a vacancy by himself.
Right.
I'm all right with that, Jane.
yeah.
And that gives me the comfort of the checks and balances. So
So I think if we, with the local law, it just needs to sit on, well, can we treat, do we need to do an amendment, or can we treat it otherwise? Because there's a 10-day limit, but we have 10 days before it would be acted upon. But if we would change the language to if the county executive fails to take action,
Fails to make an appointment
to fill a vacancy.
to fill a vacancy.
Or offer an appointment, offer a name, or
I think make an appointment would be,
Fails to make an appointment to fill a vacancy.
yeah.
submit a
And
name.
then it can go on from there, that within 60 days after a vacancy occurs.
Okay.
He just submit a name to fill a vacancy. That I can live with. If he failed to submit a name to fill a vacancy, then I can live with us.
If you go along with the charter language, it actually is making an appointment, but the appointment is subject to
Okay.
the confirmation of the legislature. Submitting a name could be
Right.
interpreted as, hey, folks, how about John Smith? Not actually saying, I appoint John Smith, subject to the legislature's
Okay.
confirmation.
So the language would be if the county executive fails to make an appointment to fill a vacancy on the board within 60 days after a vacancy occurs, the
Yeah.
county legislature shall proceed to fill such vacancy. And we can all agree to that?
I would just change the to the that's there between after and vacancy, because you're referencing the vacancy prior to
Okay.
that.
You've got that language, Cheryl? Very good. Any other discussion? Yes.
I would just wanted to thank Martin for his work on this. Obviously, I think this is an important issue. And again, I think we're seeing a theme here of whether an idea is originating on the legislative side or the executive side. I think we're having a good dialogue, and I was able to make some suggestions on language and specific concern I had was taken into consideration. We have a good finished product. So I just wanted to offer my thanks to Martin and the whole legislature for working together on this.
Can I say something? Not to beat this up too much, but that same provision, 202B, I can also contemplate, perhaps not with the folks who are here now, but another situation where this language, as is recommended as amended, doesn't contemplate the idea of, as perhaps far-fetched as it may seem, the executive makes an appointment. The legislature does not confirm it. It doesn't speak to what happens after that. I would think it should then go back to the executive having to make another appointment within 60 days of
Yes.
the legislature not confirming it.
No, if it sits on our desk for X amount of times, X amount of days, doesn't that mean we approve it by not moving?
This is a separate local law, not an appointment under the charter.
Doug, you're just saying reset the clock.
Be reset the,
Let's
yes.
say that it resets. It's acknowledged in there that it resets.
That's what I'm suggesting. Otherwise, you could still end up with a vacancy that wouldn't be filled.
May I offer a solution to this of, can we have you, Doug, investigate and suggest language? I think you know what has been interpreted or what's been put out there in committee, and we can make that amendment during the full board, just knowing that we need some clear local language to expand upon that. Is everybody comfortable with doing that?
Just like to see it ahead of,
Oh, of course.
It's done, let's see it now.
Yeah.
So Doug, if you
Or
can...
you'll have it well before that.
If you can work on that and email that out to the entire legislature and the county executive,
Yeah, sure.
as soon as you can fit it into your schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what I think we'll do is effectively rewrite that whole 202B
Subsection. Great.
and suggest a replacement of what exists there now. That's all right.
Great. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of moving to full board?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? And that passes and moves to full board. Any other business to come before the committee? Hearing none, I look for a motion to adjourn. Barbara, and a second. Roy, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Executive session.
All seem like these.
You all can do that. Just so people can
Yeah.
take it apart, how many people are involved, so people can.
I'll call the Finance Committee to order. As Legislator Weeds said earlier about talking about the piece of bites. You say quack, I say Weeds. Would it be all right if we go into executive session now, or would you like to wait
I'll
until?
make a motion.
Okay, I would just like to ask that the executive and Ken stay in the room along
We
with
should
Doug.
probably specify the purpose of it.
To discuss,
The
the,
potential sale of, if I may,
yes,
the potential sale of real property, the value of which could be affected by public disclosure of discussion.
oh, Sean's here. I'd like Sean to stay too.
Is there any discussion? Do we maybe want to do this, depending on how lengthy the executive session may go, so that if the media chooses to, they would, if anybody chooses to, they don't have to stick around?
I'm just looking for an update for a bunch of what I've heard. I don't think it's gonna take that long.
Okay.
I was going to ask if that included me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes, it does. You're very important.
Somebody